After I left school, when I was 19, I went over there to live. I went over there with my Uncle Owen, and the thing was, you know, to settle down and go and live back in Ireland. But this was 1974, and so I lived with my Uncle Owen in Dublin. Got a job in Dublin then, doing thermal insulation, which is, or lagging they call it, and where you insulate pipes and all that type of thing. And I was working for Cape Insulations, but somebody came, I remember we were working on site and somebody came in and said, look, there's got to be redundancies, sorry, we're not getting the work, you know, it's last in, first out. So it's me and this other older fella, and this fella had a family of about 5 children. So that was it, we paid our money, and I went to the pub with him, and he just got drunk, you know, really drunk, you know, and he bought a big joint of meat and said, well, I'll get it while I can afford it. You know, it was like that then. That was quite hard. I just couldn't get any work, didn't have any money. I was always avoiding the landlord to pay the rent, my £3 a week rent, but I couldn't put any money in the meter, so I was sitting there in total darkness, you know, at night, so I had to leave and go back to England. But that was my attempt to actually go and live in Ireland. I mean, when I'd left school, I had messed around really, so I didn't have a trade or anything like that. So at that time, I had to do something, and I started working in Electrolux factory. It was very boring, having to do night shift. And I remember my father saying to me, you'll never get an education unless you work in a factory. And in some ways I know what it means, you know, that it's you work hard, and you know what it's like, you know, to work hard, you know what hard work is. While I was working at Electrolux, that the manufacturing base started disappearing. All of it, you know, I was made redundant at Electrolux in the early '80s with, you know, at the time that been too political, but it was the government's policy to fight inflation, and to do that they had to cause unemployment. You know, that was it. You're a victim of an economic policy. But unemployment was a good thing, because what I did, I used that time during the 80s to educate myself again. That I did an evening class in A-level, and I was told by the lecturer saying, you know, you're unemployed now, why don't you become a student? And I just never thought of it, and do a degree. I said, what? No, you must be joking. So, and she just said, well, you know, you'd get a student grant. You used to have student grants then, not loans. And so you get a student grant, and just as much as a dole, you might as well. You know, you've got a feel for history. You know, I was doing history, and so at the time I went to Hatfield Polytechnic it was then, and did a degree in humanities, majoring in history, and so that was a change. That while I was unemployed, I mean, I still see it as a period of unemployment, and but it changed my perspective. You know, I mean, in a way I did it, like my father was right. Working in the factory was a real education. It taught me never to work in a factory again. There was a job going in Hammersmith and Fulham, for Hammersmith and Fulham Action for Disability. So I went for that job and I got it, but it was in Hammersmith, which is takes about 2 hours to get there, and so I had a good wage, and I got the job, and I thought, well, I'm good at this, and they really appreciated me. So I thought, well, I can't travel 2 hours there and 2 hours back every day. I have to move there. So that's why I moved to London and got that job. Disability was a big thing. It wasn't just the welfare rights, it was disability rights. I was working for disabled people, and disabled people were saying, look, we have to take control of our own lives, and we run our organisation, Hammersmith and Fulham for Disability, and the committee members were wheelchair users. We weren't that far from Westminster, from Parliament, so we were always going to Parliament, and you know, some of the members were blocking the roads in their wheelchairs and saying, look, we've not got access, this is what it's like. You're saying we're holding you up late for work. Think what it's like going around in a wheelchair. You can't use the tube, you can't do anything. It's like you're imprisoned. And it was like seen as the last as apartheid. They were saying this is apartheid. It was very exciting. You know, we'd just be working and we'd say, well, let's write a poster, and we'd say, right's not charity, because there was something going on down the road. We marched down the road. It was lovely in a way, you know. So, and people would, like I say, were blocking the roads in their wheelchairs. Then the police would arrest them, but wouldn't be able to arrest them because they wouldn't be able to get them in the police station because there's no disabled access. There's all this thing going on, and even the police would be on your side in the end. My part of it as well was trying to get transport, the issue of accessible transport for disabled people. I joined the committee of Hammersmith and Fulham Community Transport and trying to get them to buy disabled buses which would have ramps and you know, could get wheelchairs on. And part of the reason was so we could all fill these buses up and go down to the Houses of Parliament and give them hell. But through working in community transport, and I was driving around, driving the buses, I got to know people in community transport, and I got a job as director there. I got the job as director, and so I was working there for a long while, and that was the job I was doing when I left HAFAD, and I got so I worked for Hammersmith and Fulham Community Transport. So after working with disabled people, I found that working at community transport, it was all about fighting social isolation. I mean, if you'd be driving one of those buses, minibuses, you know, you'd hear people in the back. You'd just be leaving Hammersmith and Fulham and going over Putney Bridge, and they'd be going, cool, Gladys, look at that. Straight away just leaving the borough of Hammersmith and Fulham because they never get out. But I've come back now, and reason why I've come back is because of my children, really, because I miss them so much, you know, and I love them to pieces, you know, and you know, so I'm back now, and I'm back to doing welfare rides like I used to at HAFAD, at Luton rides, and you know, you're making people feel happy, you know, it's like going to see the doctor and you make them happy, you know, get a bit of extra money or something like that, you know, so that's what I do now. So I've come back just doing that, which is great because I was doing that voluntary in Luton, but I couldn't get a job. That's why I had to go to London. Now I'm doing it in Luton. You know, squared the circle.